let's be honest. Chances are you probably live on a street. And chances are that on your street, there are cars. Maybe you'll have them parked on driveways, maybe they'll just be out on the street like this. Chances are you probably have cars. If you've ever looked down your street, walked down your street, I'm sure some of you haven't, then you've probably seen there are actually some interesting cars. In a comparison scale to other streets, relatively speaking, my street is pretty boring. But that's not going to stop me from ranking every single car on my street. However, before we begin, I'm Thomas, it's hot, and this is the Fungus Cars. So, we will start with this Honda Jazz right here. Don't know who this belongs to, but Honda Jazzes are known, relatively speaking, as non-car people cars, because they're just like, people want reliable, effective, small mode of transport that is, well, boring. Anyhow, this is grey, it has fogged up tail lights, it's an automatic for goodness sake, and it has a broken window. I'm gonna give this, this is like 2 out of 10. Come on. Moving on to this is a Ford Fiesta, which is one of the most common cars that you'll see here. It is manual, and it does have the cool Ford center console, which I quite like. And I do like the Fiesta in total, but this has some silly stickers. They're not even centered, they're not even anywhere, so I'm going to give this a solid 4 out of 10. Let's move on to something that is not a car. That is, in fact, a motorbike. This is such a cool. This is a Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. Yes. On a scale of 1 to 10, this is definitely, I'd say, 9 out of 10. This is, look at that. Look at this shiny. And then we got a bike underneath a cover, which I have no idea, has never been off. So we're not going to rank that. But yeah, Royal Enfield, super cool. I actually might want to own those. Right, moving on, we have another Ford Fiesta. This one's actually red, which is pretty nice. And as you can see, it is a manual, has a cool Ford dash, however, it's not chrome. So I think it loses the point there. Still, it's overall pretty clean. I'd say probably 6 out of 10. It's not bad. All right, let's move on to a Skoda. Now, if you don't know, I like Skoda. This is a pretty not bad example of a Skoda Octavia. It is a mid-2010s, I think. No, never mind. It's a 2021. You can see by the facelift at the front, big headlights and stuff. It's grey, which is a boring colour. It's, not particularly clean. And so I'm going to give this a solid mid out of 10. Alright, down to something very blue and very small. Ford car. There are quite a lot of Fords on my street, and this one is pretty nice. Kind of, I don't really know Ford car sort of standards, but yeah, it's got a car badge inside the center console. And yeah, it's a solid, I'd say solid out of 10. Right, moving on to Ford EcoSport ST line, which means it has a badge and nothing else. It's kind of silly, but still. This has been here for ages now. And yeah, it's a relatively basic car. And yeah, I will downsize it in points for these massive wheels. These are unnecessarily large wheels. Like, they could have been a little bit smaller, come on. And given it better ride. Okay. Again, 5 out of 10, probably. It's not bad, but there's nothing to hate, but nothing to love at the same time. City. Right. On to the best car in the street. The Skoda Kamiq. Come on. It is the coolest. You don't even need a walk around to know this, because I've done so many walk arounds before. 10 out of 10, not biased. Alright. onto the Hyundai i20, I think. Hyundai i20. And again, grey. Manual, not bad. But then most cars in the UK are manual, actually. In fact, especially like slightly older ones. It does have quite a lot of corrosion up here. Definitely rust here. And that's not particularly nice to see. Ah, well, there you go. And yeah, look at this. It's quite funny. This used to be slightly more saturated. There you go. Apparently it's a unicorn. I highly doubt that. Solid 4.5 out of 10. Right, Golf. I think this belongs to a neighbour of mine who owns a dealership, and so therefore he'll bring in different cars like every week. I mean, I would too if I was in his position, but like, you know. So I don't know. This is a Golf, and there's nothing more to say about it. Other than it's in a Golf, and it's a TDI, which means it is turbo diesel injection. Yeah, mid. Out of 10. Onto the other side of the street now. Skoda Citigo. I quite like the Skoda Citigo, mainly because it's a Skoda. However, it is mainly based off the Volkswagen Up. Loses points for black wheels, in my opinion. And it's not particularly clean or stuff. Yeah. Car. Solid 4.5 out of 10 again. Right, onto a Ford Focus Estate. Now, in fact, this is, you see a lot of Focuses, but not that many Focus Estates. I don't mind this personally. Plus, it's quite clean. And it is a manual. And it has these very interesting side fences. You can see very long on the side. Right, still, at the end of the day, it is a Ford. And it is a Focus. And it's not particular, what does this say? Econetic technology. What is it with these eco people? Anyhow. 6 out of 10. Not bad. Right, this is a Honda Civic. And it's the, what is it? 8th gen Civic? I don't know exactly what, what generation it is, but yeah, I don't particularly like this. I actually like the latest one because it is just nicer. It's more rounded. This one, especially in the Type R version of this, is way too obnoxious. It's like when you stick so much plastic on it, it looks like really weird. But yeah, 5 out of 10. Meh. Right. Moving further down the street, you see there is a big gap because for some reason, a lot of people have just vanished and a lot of cars have just disappeared. There's usually quite a lot more. I was thinking by filming it in the evening or late afternoon, we'd get more cars, but apparently not. But there you go. I guess it is warm. Mercedes A-Class. Nothing much more to say. It is an automatic, so it's a bit mid. Grey. Pretty basic. Yeah, nothing more to say really. 5 out of 10. Onto this Volvo V60. Now, this is a pretty cool car. I like estates, and especially this Volvo looks especially good. However, it is an automatic, so this points to that. However, what this does have is I actually saw a person who owns this unlock it, and it's actually got fingerprint sensitive door handles. So you put your fingerprint in, you can open it. I mean, it's some useless tech, but like, you know, it's interesting to know that. I will rate this probably 7 out of 10. Could have been 8 if it was manual. Anyhow, moving on to a Ford C-Max. Now, also, I always get mixed up with the C-Max, S-Max, whatever Max, I don't know, Max. Yeah, it's got weird chameleon tint on the front windscreen. I think it's because sun, I don't know, I'm not a fan of it personally. But yeah, got the quirky, cool Ford interior, Ford dash. Yeah, it's got these rain covered things, which I forget why you need them. But there you go, they're on there. Yeah, 4 out of 10. It's pretty mid. Right, moving on to a Seat Ateca. It's relatively new. Very similar to a slightly higher version of the Skoda. I think it's Skoda Karoq. I'm going to say Karoq. I was going to say Kodak, but I've made that mistake before. Yeah, manual again. Not bad, but it is crossover, so loses points. Not to mention, it's white, and white can only be pulled off by very certain cars. Lamborghini Countach included, but you know, I'd probably expect it in like a nicer color. Just saying. 5 out of 10, mid. Another EcoSport. This one is a slightly nicer color. Actually, no. Wait, is that over there? This is an EcoSport, and that over there is a Eco something else. Another car. It's another car, and it's like, well, what I'm gonna say is it's okay. Quite like the blue, in my opinion. But yeah, 5.2 out of 10. Moving on to this Audi A3 here. Not the last car that we'll see, but definitely the last car on the street here. Coming back to where we started. On the surface, it's good. It has an interesting color, in my opinion. However, if you look down here, it is pretty cracked, broken, meh. Manual still, but you know, has the infotainment screen, older infotainment screen. And yeah, nothing more to say about it really. Mid out of 10. This is our neighbour's, not this person's, but that person's caravan, and it's called Horace. Now, I know it's underneath a cover, but I can tell you it's white on the top and sort of light, sort of turquoisey blue on the bottom. Unfortunately, when this was first delivered, it was such a coincidence. It was so funny. There was a Portaloo in the street, the exact same paint job, the same. It could have been paint matched. And yeah, it was kind of funny. Still, this is a properly decked out camper. Underneath, it actually is a classic Type 2 Volkswagen Caravan. However, it's not the original one. It was made in Mexico, I think in like 2011 something. It's probably as old as me, maybe a little bit older. And inside, yeah, it's like definitely all sort of camper stuff. However, it is probably lacking in some power because it's still got the original engine. It has actually had a right-hand drive swap, which is really cool. But yeah, I'd say 8 out of 10. 8.253 out of 10. Right, that's where we're going to wrap it up for today. Now, if you want to see this video here, that video there, or if you want to subscribe to me, click anywhere around me because I'll probably put them in. And yeah.